Peace. Today I wanted to talk a little bit about social economic engineering. Now, most people are familiar with social engineering, but I want to talk about socioeconomic engineering. The difference is with social engineering, these are governments or companies or institutions and mediums that deal with communication that utilizes their position to influence just the behaviors and the beliefs of the masses of people. Now, when you add economics to it, or social economic engineering, these are the same governments or institutions, companies and mediums of communication that utilize their position to influence the beliefs and the behavior of people for economic empowerment of their elite position and status. So, for example, if you were to check out some of the major production houses in Hollywood, right? And one thing, if you are aware, you'll recognize a certain pattern in specific genres of movies that are put out at certain times. All of this is by design. You may see some of these companies get together, and it's strange that you got this company putting out a movie about Noah. You got this other movie putting out something about ancient Egypt. You obviously see all Caucasians playing the roles of the indigenous and first world people. And what ends up happening is that influences the beliefs and the behaviors of the masses of people. It also is reinforced by the affiliated companies that make money off of the marketing and the promotion of those ideas that this production house is putting out. So what ends up happening is you begin to see people become sheeple, following certain beliefs and behaving a certain way based upon the influence of these production houses in Hollywood. The exact same thing applies to news medias, with a lot of these incidences of police violence that's being put out in mainstream media around the country more recently. Some people are under the impression that, wow, there's more police violence than ever before. No. Police violence like that has always been in this country since the police were organized as an internal military unit here on American soil. If you go back and you research some of the news media in terms of publications in the 1920s and 30s, you see incidences of police violence, and it's being proudly talked about in a lot of these publications all around the country. So you've always had that going on. It's just now, with the introduction of the type of technology we have, it doesn't mean that every incident of police violence or whatever is being put out in the mainstream media. The mainstream media chooses to put that out. And what I'm explaining is, a lot of times it's only for the invested interests of social economic engineering. And one of the things to keep in mind is, when you look at some of these news stories that's being put out throughout social media, or you see them online, there are always keywords associated with those news stories. Those news stories are written a specific way with specific keywords in it to make it easier to be translated and converted into analytics programs. And also, you see hashtags attached to a lot of these news stories. What does all of that mean? What it means is, you have companies that make money off of tracking the analytics or the performance of certain stories that's being circulated in mainstream media. And when you see something being constantly shared, and you see people commenting on certain stories, or you see people disagreeing about certain stories, or you see people reporting certain stories, all of that interaction can be quantified in analytics programs. So companies can sell this information to institutions or news medias or production houses in Hollywood and tell you that, yo, this is the popularity of a story like this. We already have information and data that supports the fact that people would buy into a movie like this, or people would buy into a series like this, or people would support music like this, because you have analytics programs and it measures the behavior as well as the beliefs of people around the world, and it determines the popularity or how unpopular something is, and whether or not people can actually make money off of it. So I'm saying all of that to say, first of all, just because you see something being circulated in mainstream media, it does not mean that that story is right and exact. There's been a lot of different incidences where it's been shown and proven that stories were just blatant lies or they weren't right and exact. But all of it's done in the interests of socioeconomic engineering, and all of it is done to produce data that can be quantified to determine the popularity or how unpopular something actually is. So those of you who are on social media, and you may be writers, you may be doing blogs, you may be doing videos such as this, realize the importance of your position as a medium to also be in a position to social economically engineer for the right purpose. So you're connected to people, and people have some feelings or beliefs, or they're going to behave in response to something that you're sharing. Utilize that position responsibly. You know, do it in a way where countering the narrative of mainstream media is a way of striving to equalize the socioeconomic landscape, not just here in America, but all over the world. But if we're not taking the responsibility and being accountable for our platform, then we won't be able to do that. So this was inspiring, it was empowering, it was educating, and gave those of you a little bit more insight on what is important to be mindful of in terms of socioeconomic engineering. If we're not aware of what is going on, then we no longer become people, we become sheeple. And we become the basis upon people making themselves rich from our labor. And when I say labor, I'm talking about what we are emotionally invested in. You know, going back and forth on something and online, and we resharing stuff that we don't like, and all of that can be quantified. Sometimes you don't need to share something. You don't even need to mention something. You don't even need to use certain keywords that can be easily tracked and associated with certain stories. You know what I'm saying? And I know that what I'm saying may be something those of you have never really put too much thought into, but your position is important, especially if you're on social media, you know, and you're watching what I'm saying right now. Use it responsibly, use it consistently, and realize that when you see certain stories that are being circulated by specific organizations that you can trust, that you think it's important for their message to get out there to help influence the beliefs and the behaviors of the masses of people, reshare it, support it, especially if it has specific type of hashtags, because that is a way that you can send a message to the mainstream of how we feel and what we think about certain type of injustices that are going on. Peace.